Mercedes-Benz, one of the most iconic brands about cars, also about racing. They have a very strong brand and visual identity, but there's something that is strange to me. What is happening with the Formula 1 team in social media? Mercedes, AMG Petronas, have a typography, in my opinion, that is not fitting with his communication as a global brand, as a car selling company. Mercedes have an unique typography. Mercedes is a brand, not only as a Formula 1 team. Why they did not use that typography? In this video, let's make an experiment. Let's change the typography and let's see what happens. The results will be really surprising. Are you ready? Let's go for it. Well, as you can see here in the images, as we're checking the social media of the Mercedes Formula 1 team on Twitter or X, Facebook, on Instagram, they are using the same designs for their social media to communicate their drivers' results. Every statement, they are using these designs with this kind of typography. The visual and brand identity communication, it's good because it's the same. They are using the same designs for different social media platforms. I was checking also the official YouTube channel of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula 1 team, and as you can see in the thumbnails, the typography and the colors are also related to what we were seeing before. In the website, you can see some extension of the visual and branding identity of the rest of the social media platforms. And maybe you are asking yourself, is so important typography for a visual communication in a brand identity? Absolutely yes, it's so important as the image. Most of the people don't know that typography it's a visual element as well, because there's many different fonts we can use, and depending on the font we are using, we are sending one message or another different one. Let's see an example that is very representative. Look at that. If you see this image, you are reading Google, but probably you are thinking in Coke, in Coca-Cola. Why? Because of the typography. The typography not only works as a text element, it's also working as an image, as a design. Typography is part of the design. It's communicating your visual identity as well. That's why to pick specific fonts for your brand, for your team, is super important to define who you are, what are you selling, what are you offering, what are you communicating to the world with that typography, you know? Mercedes have a typography, in my opinion, that is not fitting with his communication as a global brand, as a car selling company. And that's why we are investigating in this video about how we can change the typography to try to represent a bit more the Mercedes message to the world in his Formula 1 team. If you are enjoying this video, thumbs up. Thank you so much. So it's time to investigate. It's time to try to use a different font for Mercedes. The first thing I do was to investigate what typography was used in Mercedes for social media. What is the name of that typography? And after some researchings, I found something very interesting in F1 Reddit. Anyone know what font Mercedes is using? The question I need to respond. And one of the users give us the key. They use Unity Sans TT, which seems to be a self-customized version of the popular Space Grotesque. That's very important. Self-customized. Normally big companies want to create some kind of typography that is exclusive for their brand, and in that way to copyright that font and to use in exclusive that font. Mercedes Formula 1 team, I think, is using that concept. I was trying to find this font for using in my designs, but it was not possible because it's self-customized. They have the rights to use it. But I have a clue. The clue that was inspired in the Space Grotesque. So what I did was to investigate about Space Grotesque. After some researching, I found the typography. Mercedes was inspired to create its own typography. And my surprise was that it's a Google font. That means the license is open. That means everyone can use this font for commercial purposes, for whatever you want. It's free to use. And as you can see, here I wrote some words that you can see in the official Mercedes web. It's very similar. Especially the E letter, the numbers, the 22 number, for example. The Mercedes typography is self-customized Space Grotesque typography from Google. Mercedes have an unique typography as well. Mercedes is a brand, not only as a Formula 1 team. Why they did not use that typography? So the next question is, what is the typography of Mercedes? Let's find it. If we go to the official Mercedes-Benz web, you can see this typography is different. So the next question is, what is the name of this typography? Can we use it for our experiments? I found a manual, the manual of the companies associated to Mercedes, Daimler. And in that manual, I found the name of the Mercedes typography that they are using on the web. The Mercedes-Benz corporate product brand uses an exclusive typeface called Mercedes-Benz Corpo. This is distributed free of charge to authorized dealers or service partners and external service providers upon request. Mercedes-Benz Corpo is the typography we are searching for. But as we read in the text, you only have authorization to use in case you are an authorized dealers or service partner or external service provider. We are an individual. We cannot obtain that Mercedes-Benz typography to use. So what I did was to try to find some kind of typography similar to this Mercedes-Benz Corpo typo. And that's what I was searching for in Google Fonts. PT Serif. For me, this typography fits very well with the typography we saw in the official web of Mercedes. Are similar, maybe this typography is a bit more bold, but it maintains the same spirit of this typography, which is a serif typography. In the typography world, most of the fonts are serif or sans serif. Serif fonts are this kind of fonts that have at the borders this kind of tails or fits around, and also the weight of the letter changes. It can be one side wider than the other. By the other hand, a sans serif font is a font that is simple, have not variety in the weight of the sides, and have not this kind of tails or fits around. It's simple, it's clean. The most famous typography of Mercedes is a serif font, and the typography that the Mercedes Formula 1 team is using is a sans serif font. Question is why the Mercedes Formula 1 team is not connecting his brand that is using serif fonts with the Formula 1 team. And I have an example about how to use some kind of Mercedes typography for design. Some years ago, I made a documentary about the championship battle between the two Formula 1 Mercedes drivers, Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, in 2016. The documentary I named it The Silver War. To create that documentary, not only I create the video, I create a brand identity, a visual identity, creating a logotype for that documentary, and I tried to use a typography that was similar to this Mercedes-Benz font that I mentioned before. The typography to represent that documentary has to be something related to Mercedes. That's why I select that typography, to create a connection between the Mercedes brand with my documentary that was talking about Mercedes as well. Maybe you are asking yourself right now, why you are not using the typography you use for your documentary? The Sparkle typography that I use for the Silver War is great for big titles, but it's not useful in small sizes for reading because it's very thin. So I try to find a new one, in this case PT Serif. It's a bit more bold, more fat in some way, and it's much more readable in small sizes, you know. So it's time to experiment with this typography and let's see what we can do. Let's go for it. By the way, if you are enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. Well, what do you think about it? For me, it's much better, guys. The visual communication is much more connected with Mercedes brand identity, guys. We change the typography only, but as you can see, the communication is totally different. For me, this typography combined with this design represents Mercedes, not only as a Formula One team, as a brand itself. For me, it makes more sense. Let me know in the comments below if you are thinking in the same way as me, if you think in this typography connects much more with Mercedes, and let me know if you like it or not. Maybe you are not agree with me, you like the previous one. What we learned in this video is typography is one of the most important elements in branding and for a visual identity communication. My name is Dani Lozano. I am an independent Formula One video editor and content creator that was creating during the last 10 years videos, documentaries and edits about Formula One, reaching more than 20 million views on my main YouTube channel, Floss by Dani Lozano. I hope you enjoy this video. If you like branding, graphic design and Formula One, this is the playlist you have to save. I will upload much more videos about brand identity and Formula One. We'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye bye.